Okay, alright guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about the lost city of Atlantis.
Yeah, so the story of Atlantis has been known to scientists for a long time, but has been dismissed by scientists as some kind of a science fiction story without even investigating or doing deeper testing. For many scientists, the story is just made up by Plato to make some kind of a political point.
Yeah, and back in the day, Plato was a very credentialed man. I bet you probably heard of him in school in philosophy or some subject like that. So that makes us wonder why scientists just dismissed the story and, thought that Plato wrote it to make some sort of political point or whatever. And they just dismissed it without even looking for it. So yeah, that makes us wonder.
It really does.
It actually really does makes us wonder.
It does make us wonder.
Why did they miss it? Well, to sort of answer that question, as usual, as soon as something new pops up that doesn't fit the mainstream historical lineage of how things are supposed to be, it is instantly dismissed by mainstream academic scientists. And that is such a shame, at least in archaeology, because they can't admit when they're wrong. So as soon as something new pops up, it is, they don't even consider that it might be a possible outcome. So yeah, it's really a shame in science, at least in archaeology, that they can't admit when they're wrong.
Yeah, therefore we're going to present to you the overwhelming evidence that something like Atlantis could have existed and why it sunk to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, Plato was a Greek philosopher and he lived around 400 BC. He wrote the story of Atlantis that was handed down to him from his grandfather, who got it from the famous Greek lawmaker Solon. Solon went to Egypt around 600 BC, where he got the story of Atlantis from Egyptian priests who told him in detail of what had happened. They said that a great civilization was destroyed and was swallowed by the sea precisely 9,000 years ago, and this was said 2,600 years ago. Plato also writes this in the story of Atlantis. That puts the destruction of Atlantis to 11,600 years ago.
Now, what is so special about that date? 11,600 years ago. As we mentioned in other videos, this was the end of the Younger Dryas period, where we suddenly left the Ice Age and incredible amounts of ice melted, which raised the sea levels with 120 meters all across the world.
Now, do you really think that's a coincidence? I mean, Plato couldn't even have known that there was an ice age. Still, he dates the destruction of Atlantis to exactly 11,600 years ago. The exact same date as the meltwater pulse 2b that caused mega tsunamis and flooding to all islands and all coastal areas across the world.
Okay, so Plato explained that Atlantis was built upon island complexes outside of the Pillars of Heracles, which refers to the Gibraltar channels. That would put Atlantis somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean.
Before the ice melted, the islands would have been very close to the Portuguese islands known as the Azores. It would have been very easy to get there by boat since you could stop on several other islands, now also underwater on your way there. Atlantis would also have been a paradise to live on. At that time it probably had the best natural circumstances in the world. The Gulf Stream ran right through the islands and gave warm and humid temperatures, while other places on Earth was covered in 2 kilometers thick ice.
Okay, so you might wonder why no one has been looking for the remains of Atlantis at this place. One of the reasons why is because it's 1 kilometer under current sea level. When the ice melted in North America and Europe, all the weight on top of the continent was lost and disappeared into the water, and the continent could rise up again after thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah, in places like Sweden, for example, it's actually still rising to this day. When the ice was removed, the continent could rise up, but at the same time, and take a look at this, the Atlantic Ridge, where these islands were supposed to be located, the Atlantic Ridge was lower down and sunk into the ocean, while those continents rised. So you can sort of think of it like a balloon. Let's say if I push one side of the balloon, another side will rise up and vice versa. And the same thing applies for our planet. So if a continent rises, another continent will be sunk into the ocean. Now, there is many different speculations on where Atlantis were. People have proposed that it was in the Mediterranean, Cuba, North America, Mauritania and Africa, and so on. Now, Plato clearly stated that it was located in the Atlantic Ocean. So if you take what he said literally, then you should take everything he said literally. The place that we propose as the location of Atlantis is also the most plausible. All the pieces fit together on this place. The dating, the sunken landmass, the perfect location, and Plato's description.
There is not a lot of evidence of stories of Atlantis, except for what Plato wrote and some small damaged scriptures. But as we told you before, the entire story originated from Egypt, where Solon got his story from Egyptian priests. So shouldn't there be more evidence of Atlantis in Egypt?
Well, there probably was a ton of information concerning this lost civilization in Egypt, but most of it's gone. Not only because it's a long time ago, but also because the center of information, where hundreds of books and scriptures of history, was destroyed. This place were the Library of Alexandria, the biggest library in the world at that time, located in northern Egypt.
However, when Julius Caesar and his Roman army attacked Alexandria in 48 BC, they burned down the Library of Alexandria, thus destroying all valuable information stored there. Imagine what we could have known about our ancient past if the library had survived. The scientists that see Atlantis as a fairy tale story use the argument that no physical evidence has been found, and therefore there was no such thing as Atlantis. First, the civilization would have been destroyed 11,600 years ago, which is an incredibly long time. Not only that, but was utterly destroyed by global cataclysm.
However, some people probably survived the cataclysm, and the best option for them would have been to settle with hunter-gatherer groups, who had a lot more survival skills than the Atlanteans. And we know for a fact that there were a lot of hunter-gatherer groups around the world at that time. But perhaps the survivors from Atlantis could transfer some valuable information on technology to the hunter-gatherers. That's probably why we see such similarities in construction all over the world. For example, the Inca, Maya and Olmec structures are very similar to Egyptian and Mesopotamian structure, even though they are far from each other. We also see similarities in myths about a great civilization which was destroyed long ago, not only by Plato, but from many other cultures all across the world.
So yeah guys, as you can see, there's a lot more to be said about this matter, and we will for sure be going in deeper in the next up and coming videos.
Yeah, and thank you for looking at this video. Make sure to leave a like, and if you enjoy
Subscribe.
our content, you
Just subscribe. Come on.
have to hit the subscribe button, innit? I mean, it would help us so much, and that would actually get me alive. Otherwise, it will happen to you as well.